Thank you, the panel members, for being here. When I was, it's a session on on policy impact. While coming, I'm from Delhi, so when I was coming in the morning, I was like going through my LinkedIn, and I came across a very interesting sort of a quote on LinkedIn today morning, and I just couldn't help, noting it down, and I thought it's a very apt sort of for our discussion that we're going to have. And I thought, let me note it down before I sort of forget it. And, but it's such a, in fact, I would suggest all of you should have a look at the very interesting note that this lady has put. Suman Chandra, she's a director in Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India. And she'd put out a post on policy impact. And it said that bad policies don't punish policymakers. They punish people, business, and planet. And I thought it was such an apt sort of way to start this particular conversation, And since we're discussing policy, I felt that we all understand, how policies have, over the years, especially from 1990s onwards when those economic reforms happened, we are all, in a way, children of those changes. If I can begin with Varun. Varun, your journey has been interesting in terms of, you come from a real estate background, you trained yourself in India, abroad, and you came back. Of course, there has been policy changes over the years in real estate, and real estate apparently is one of the most regulated market, and also there are issues on governance which always keeps cropping up. How has your, if you could take us through, how has your journey in real estate changed or shaped yourself, in terms of the way you do your business, the way you've changed the scenario changing from a policy level, say, in fact, say pre-COVID and post-COVID. And COVID actually has changed a lot of us.
Well, thank you, Sudipto. Firstly, I would like to greet everyone a very good evening. It is a pleasure to be a part of such an esteemed panel and share stage with such dignitaries. Well, it's a quite, illuminating question that Sudipto has pushed. Firstly, we need to understand that there is optimism in how we are seeing our nation going forward. And therefore, we sometimes tend to, celebrate certain policies in advance to seeing the actual effect of it. So, it is very important to understand that, policy decisions and implementations are, there's a timeline attached to it. And, we should not hurry and come to a conclusion prior to seeing the impacts of a particular policy is what I fundamentally believe in and is what I, in my experience have seen. Leading a real estate organization, I have realized that policy plays a very, very big and central role in, not just in our business, but how we are going forward as a nation. Because it, gives a, mirror to the mindset of the people who decide upon those policies. It is a reflection of what they are, what is their vision, what they actually want to bring onto the ground, right? So, we all know how ambitious our, Honorable Prime Minister is, and in fact, how hardworking he himself is, because of which we have seen the kind of change we have witnessed in, last one decade. The potential was always there, the action was always there, but the intent and the passion which has become visible along with the effort, I think has brought about a, a very fresh pace of change. Globally, India is back on the map and, we are seen as a leader and not just as a, a big nation. So I think a lot has gone into creating that kind of perception, and in fact, we have a lot of substance behind it. When we got our independence and the kind of situation we were in, post that, a lot of us have taken a lot of big risks we have, kind of evolved over time. And that is why we are now in a position wherein, we can lead the global stage. Having said that, there's no denying that a lot needs to be done before we can actually, take on the big developed countries. In fact, the last couple of policy changes which have had a very positive impact, I would firstly like to congratulate the government on the implementation of RERA, which has been a nationwide, policy, which was, an act, which was, a long time coming and was not, being implemented by different governments prior to it, because it has brought transparency onto the center stage. And I think that has helped a lot of FDI coming in, that has helped a lot of developers become organized, and has increased the confidence of consumers in the real estate industry. So definitely it is something, which is to be appreciated. Secondly, a lot of, municipalities across the nation are now coming up with one-step portal. So for all the sanctions and approvals for which, in our industry, we used to have to run to different departments, and, there were so many, bottlenecks to deal with. Having one-stop platform with a, very good technology backing it, and it being implemented successfully is a big relief. It saves time, it saves cost, and in fact, it also kind of, enforces certain practices which were missing. Because you see, traditionally, we used to ignore environment. Our main focus was only on profitability. We used to ignore certain things such as, planning for disabled people, right? A lot of buildings you will see have not, provision for disabled people properly, and day in and day out they face difficulties in accessing. So, a lot of effort has gone into understanding, planning and execution of, policies, wherein now the developments that are coming in, not just in Maharashtra and, the leading states and major cities, but also in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, wherein development is happening rapidly, that we are seeing that these policies have taken a good shape. However, I would also like to point out that, sometimes what happens is a drastic step such as, demonetization, although it had no direct impact as such in the real estate industry, the uncertainty aspect of it, created an environment around consumers wherein, in general, they targeted the real estate industry overall. So I think while the policymakers need to, become more efficient, transparent, and take the businesses into confidence, so that the announcement of the policies and implementation of those policies can be phased out properly. The companies can adapt those policies in a manner in which it becomes successful. If we do not have an active role in, contributing to the implementation of those policies and planning of those policies, what happens is, even if the intent is good, the end outcome will not reach. Absolutely. Because the businesses have not been taken into confidence.
Absolutely.
And different businesses have different challenges. So while they cannot take all businesses, in general, certain good practices that are being followed in certain organizations, if they are taken in loop, I think there will be a lot of positive impact in that particular, sector. Now, coming to pre-COVID and post-COVID change, the major change that I have seen is industry has become very much approachable. The time that people got during COVID, people have understood their needs better. Okay. Previously, in our industry, we used to have consumers who were not aware of what they actually want. So in terms of end users, we have realized that people are better aware, people are better, they do their research before coming to a particular project and investing in it. And further that, we as developers need to broaden our approach. We cannot just, segment ourselves in residential or commercial, because post-COVID, commercial industry did take a bit of a hit because of offline and online hybrid mode. So, but industrial and manufacturing took a, it turned into a very positive segment, because, different FMCG companies, international companies were willing to come into India and settle their, warehousing units. And so what I have realized is we need to be very adaptable. We need to be cautious towards our environment, because, at the end of the day, it's these resources which are most valuable to our human survival. So we cannot, in order to, grow rapidly, we cannot compromise on basic essential values and practices that we need to follow. Thank you.
Very well put. So basically, you're saying that one thing is policy uncertainty should not be there, and second is that players have to become, marketplace are more adaptable to the changes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great. Pramodji, if I can come to you, we know in the last few months, geopolitics has changed the competitive landscape, be it from supply chain, be it from overall competitive landscape has changed globally. From your perspective, and you have been very closely, you started your own business and you've grown it. So, from your own perspective, how geared are the MSMEs in India for this changing competitive landscape?
Yeah, thank you, Day, and good evening to all. MSME. The MSME means micro, small, and medium enterprises.
Absolutely.
Matlab, looks like a very small, like it has a capping over capital, capping over revenue and turnover. So looks very small, but the other picture is MSME is the sector which is the highest employment generator into the country after agriculture. Matlab, surprised to know that MSME contributes to 62% of employment in the country.
Absolutely.
It contributes to 30% of the GDP of the country. So there are some 6 crore MSME units registered with the government. So that makes a very big picture. The 30% GDP, 62% employment after agriculture, second largest employment provider is MSME. And coming back to your question, you have asked that the recent geopolitical changes, how much adaptable they are. MSME is going to be competitive, you said. Okay. Yeah, quite correct. And it was quite unfortunate and uncertain that somebody never expected that it can happen, but it had just happened. So how much prepared we are towards the technological changes? You mean Industry 4.0 and digitization?
Basically overall, I mean to say the fact that supply chains are changing, your demand is also sort of, your customers are demanding different sort of, the customers' preferences also changing. Some of the, if you're exporting somewhere, your customers are changing. There are restrictions, global restrictions also. And also your cost competition also, the cost bases are also changing. So how do you sort of, what is your sense? What is the sense you are getting on the whole? How geared are MSMEs for this type of changes?
The general fact is that Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest is the first and foremost example, and we have to compete, we have to adapt the changes.
Absolutely.
And technology makes the things better and cheaper also at the same time. So we have to adopt the technology. And now in MSME also, very small and simple machines, they have eyes, they have ears, they have sensor-based. They are sensor-based. IoT is there. So things are very simple and very economical and very precise also. So MSME is that way quite prepared and they are quite adapted also. And the next generation is Generation Z, so they are quite adaptive in the technology. AI has been in everybody's mobile. AI is there, so we can know about the things. we can upgrade ourselves, and we have to upgrade also. So that particular part has become simpler and simpler day by day. The world has become smaller.
Absolutely.
So certainly there are certain doors are now closed, but certain doors have opened also at the same time.
Absolutely.
So with the reform GST, as you mentioned recently, it has widened the scope of economic. It will certainly give a boost. Consumer demand would increase. So there are new doors coming up. There are new opportunities would come up, and certainly people would have to find those solutions, which are some way easier also and some way possible also. So I think industry is quite mature to adapt those changes. But there's one thing government also should and can do. With this much contribution, like 30% of GDP and 62% of employment, अगर गवर्नमेंट अगर इसके लिए थोड़ा और सपोर्टिव हो जाए, तो मेरे ख्याल से जो विजन 2047 है वो 2037 में भी अचीव हो सकता है, and I think everybody would agree to it.
Wow, that's a very good note to. I think that is the spirit of enterprise. Like that, what we say 2047, you can do in 2037. Dr. Gadayali, would you agree with that assessment? Can we do in 2037 what the government is saying we could do in 2047? Do we have that in us?
I think the journey has already started. I mean, if you look at the reforms are already kicking in. You look at India as on the world map, as other panelists really said. And India has an entrepreneurship spirit that is there.
Absolutely.
70% of all the businesses are family-run businesses. 70% of GDP is contributed by them.
Absolutely.
If you look at the top 500 businesses in India, 320 are run by family-run businesses. So I think the spirit is there. There is an inherent demand that is really there. We are blessed with a growing population. There is a lot of urbanization happening. So I think opportunity is really there. It's across sectors, and things are really opening up. If you talk to some senior industrialists, probably in the 80s and the 90s, starting one unit or a factory, the biggest problem was capital. People would build one unit, get some profit, go to the bank, build the second unit. Today, the floodgates have opened for capital to come into this country. So, as we always say, there is no dearth of capital. It's good businesses are lacking. So I think when capital is coming in, there is a lot of opportunity. Even in this week, we've seen one of the startups do one of the biggest IPOs that is really there. Absolutely. So I think things are changing. So this vision that we go to 100 years, there would be a lot of wealth creation that would happen. Sectors would open up. Technology is catching up with everything. And as SMEs adopting technology, larger companies adopting technology, there's a lot of talk of AI. In my opinion, it's an enabler. It will not eliminate the human field that is really there. And this kind of growth, there is a lot of scope as far as India is concerned, and this growth will go on for decades and decades. You look at any multinational company today, any foreign company, they want to come to India. I mean, they really want to come to India. Why? Because, this is the market to be in. If you look at India in a short term, there could be certain constraints, there could be certain challenges. But, as I always say, the next decade will be always better than this decade. So it is going to open up. It is getting better. The journey has started. We've made substantial progress in it. And things will, get better for sure, that kind of thing.
Interesting, you mentioned about family businesses. 70%, more than 70% of Indian businesses are family businesses. And that's a blessing in disguise, I would say.
Absolutely.
But governance issues do crop up in family businesses, and we've seen also the succession battles. Even in big corporates. True. And these are all family things which all of us are aware of. What is your advice? I'm to say you deal with a lot of family offices.
True. Yes.
How do you what is the advice that you give them, how they should go about this, transition? Because it's a transition of not only wealth to the next generation, it's also transition of knowledge.
True.
So how do you what is your advice to your clients when you?
It's often said the first generation is the creator.
Absolutely.
The second generation is the builder. And the third generation is the destroyer. So by the time a lot of family businesses reach the third generation, it seems to be in a problem. So I think the best way, if you look at history of family businesses in this country, I think something really happened in the last decade. A lot of family businesses are going public.
Yeah.
You tell a family business to put corporate governance, it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult to have, put those systems in place. However, with the advent of capital coming in, with the thing that you can get listed, you can get equity, corporate governance has been put upon family businesses.
Absolutely.
And these are the businesses which have survived 60, 70, 90 years. It's very rare to find a private limited company survive for 90, 100 years, unless it goes public. So I think that is one aspect. Second is very, very important. I think as every generation changes, it's very important to make the business interesting. The next generation that comes in doesn't want to go to the shop floor probably.
Yeah.
They believe that, I can probably, deploy capital better. I can be a smarter investor rather than a worker.
Yeah.
So I think this change that is there, adoption of technology, again, very, very important. If we adopt technology, whether it's in finance, whether it is in compliance, whether it is in manufacturing, is something that we look at. Also, you got to keep structures which are very, very open. Today, there is a lot of geopolitical uncertainty. If you look at it today, there are more wars, armed conflicts in the world more than World War II.
Absolutely.
But you look at the US stock market, all-time high. We are doing reasonably good. We have started doing good, at least over the last few days. So there is no major problem. So I think what is really important is get your structures very clear. Larger families will have corporate governance put in place, like a family constitution, a clear transition. I think two things, really create a problem. One is lack of clarity.
Okay.
It's very important to give clarity. Like if you have 2-3 children, who's going to take up what? Conflict arises from two aspects, lack of clarity and economic disparity. If you don't give there is no economic disparity among the children or the next generation, I think things will survive. The taste may change, the industry may change. That is why you see a lot of family businesses today have started supporting and investing in startups.
Absolutely.
Because a family business, 10, 12, 15%, good growth. A startup, 50, 60, 70, 100% growth. Like a family business will never grow 50, 100% every year. So I think things are changing as long as there is clear communication among the generations that are there. So intra-generational communication, and you put these structures in place, I think the chances of survival are very, very high. Also, the fallacy a lot of children have is, I meet a lot of families that say, today children don't have any decision making. When Papa retires, I will do the decision making. But let me be very clear, the first generation never retires. He will say that at 50, he'll say that at 60, he'll say that at 70. Now at 70, the second generation is already in his 50s. So, there is a problem. So I think,
it's a royal family, English royal family.
Absolutely. So, let's be very clear. The first generation will never, ever retire. Yeah. They may change the form in which they are really, doing business. Instead of looking at, everyday roles, they may just look at certain decision making. So, as long as all this is put very clearly, that your generation above is never going to retire. They're always going to be there. And you have to work your way through systems and processes is important. Also, if you look at delegation, a complaint a lot of young, second, third generation people would have, that the first generation never delegates. They would never delegate because they have started it from scratch.
Yes.
So, these are things where, you imbibe that, put a culture in place, get new talent, and, you set up a roadmap for 5 years, 10 years. I think you should do well as a family businesses, where we've seen certain families have conflict and learn from lessons, and they have put it very clear for the next generation. So
interesting. From a policy perspective, what policy changes? How could policy help this transition? What would be your take on that?
I think policy, in terms of policy, if you look at industry level policy, I mean, if you look at the manufacturing sector, you look at the sustainability sector, a lot of families have started talking about ESG today. I think that is becoming the buzzword, that is really there, because the younger generation is more caring about the environment than probably the older generation. They understand that. So I think, incentives in such sectors, when you look at manufacturing, there is a lot of manufacturing incentive given by the government. IT is on a very good wicket. You look at technology. Technology is across. Like today, if you look at a very simple thing, if you look at my industry, financial services industry. Yeah. Today, every month, about 20,000 crores is invested as SIP amount every month. Who are the people investing it? These are not very ultra-rich HNIs. People with 500,000, 2,000. How are they able to do that? Because today it is enabled by the Aadhaar technology pack.
Absolutely.
20 years back, if I had to invest in a mutual fund, I would have to call an advisor. He would fill up a form. I would give him a check. Process would take 10 to 12 days. Yeah. Today it takes 15 minutes. Yeah. So I think that technology enabler that is really there, that is something that is really, enabled industry to be there. Corporate governance, a lot of families have started putting in place. Like today, people do realize the importance of independent directors. Yeah. Lessons have been learned, and it's not necessary that only when you're going public, you would really have it. So I think things are, in place, and over the period of time, I think, sometimes strict regulation force governance on you, but in hindsight, always that governance helps you grow. Absolutely. I think, you put those governance in place, and it's really there. GST that is really there. When introduced, there was a lot of problem that time. Industry adapted to it, and now we have a reform in GST that is really there. I think that has changed the way way family businesses conduct business. He mentioned about demonetization. I mean, that was a lesson learned by a lot of families, in which they really said that we need to probably adapt and change the way we do business. So I think, certain policies when implemented, I think really help, in the growth incentive. Also, one thing very important is, today, employment for the youth is a very, very big issue that is there in the country. If we can have clear policy of incentive to employment, it will really, really, help the industry, as well as a lot of youth today that, would like aspirational educated youth that would like to get, the jobs. Because I think the biggest problem today we would face in the near future is educated unemployment. I think that's an issue that we need to really focus on. And if over a period of time we can have such policies, it will really help the industry and overall, employment status of the country. So,
great. Pramodji, what has been your experience like? You are a first-generation entrepreneur. How are you changing the way business is run in your family? I'm tempted to ask you this.
How I am towards these changes. Like in my family, I have 2 daughters and a son. Son is the youngest. I'm waiting for them to join. My eldest daughter has already joined the business for the last, I think, 6-8 years. She's also there right away also. So she's married. All the children will join the family, business. So it is some way looks like. So, and in my opinion, the best part, I'm slightly not agreeing to what Dr. Saab has said. In my view, I look forward as कि मेरे सामने अगर handover हो जाए तो अच्छा है. Rather, in my view, I sometimes say that कि sons, I'm your caretaker of your business. So take charges in my presence in front of me. It will be good for me and good for you also.
Absolutely.
So this is the way I look at it.
I think you are ahead of the times. Varun, I'm pretty sure you are second generation, right?
Yes.
So you are the creator now. So in terms of how are you sort of preparing yourself?
See, one thing I would like to admit is, although I did not get a lot of opportunity to work along with my father, but it was 2 good solid years that I got with him. I will say that, his approach and my approach towards how we are doing things are very different. So the biggest challenge that I faced was, his team when I got into the business, because they were used to doing things in the manner in which he pleased, right? And, being young, coming from different, studying in Australia, working in Australia, I had a different energy level, and I mean, I don't know if you're aware about, Bengal and its work culture. It's, quite popular. Although, it has improved over, last
I
6,
think you're
7.
being modest here.
No, but it has not yet reached Maharashtra level, but it has improved significantly. And I think, it is upon me also to kind of nurture talent. Because, initially I was having the issue of expectation and reality. My expectations would never match reality, right?
Yeah.
So then I decided upon myself that if I want it to be inverse, then I need to invest my time. I need to, do skills training and all of these things, bring passion into the, workforce that's coming in. Because working cannot just be a source, it cannot just be about livelihood. Because, like other panelists are saying now, with availability of capital, you will find one or the different kind of opportunity, right? It is very important that, and it will also help us solve the employment issue, that during our education phase itself, somehow we are able to identify as to which field we are interested in, and we can continue working monotonously. Because, you see, work at times is interesting, but most of the times is not. It's hard work, it's challenges, it's boring, and you have to, crop up all of those, take up a lot of stress, take up a lot of challenges, you have to meet targets, and only then you can sustain and be successful.
Absolutely.
You can never let your guards down, right? So the idea of making money, the idea of branding, the popularity and everything, it's quite good, but behind the scenes, it requires a lot of work, right? So it's being second generation, what I have realized is the main thing that I had to do was adopt the company's ethos, culture, and then attune the entire system into the way I can function. Because if that doesn't happen, if that shift doesn't happen, I think the second generation will always suffer. If both first and second generation are working together, and the system only answers to how the first generation functions, I think the second generation will be crippled before even it can bloom.
Absolutely.
So I think the first generation does not need to agree with everything that second generation is doing, but they need to enable this atmosphere wherein the second generation can foster their own system into the organization.
So you are saying what Pramodji is right now doing.
Exactly. I think it is a great
So we must
way.
compliment him for that.
Yeah.
We can go on for a long time. It's a very interesting discussion we are having, but the time's up, so it's already on the screen for some time. Thank you very much to all the panel members, and of course we can talk offline, and it's a very interesting subject to talk on. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much.